Let's get back to some good old-fashioned AP versus JP comparative analysis here. Tennessee is our 15th ranked team in the country in the JP poll. The AP has them outside the top 25 entirely. We have to go past the top 25. We have to look down below the bottom column where it says teams that also got votes, and Tennessee's the first one listed there. So they are the 26th ranked team in the country. Hogwash, as Meemaw would say. Hogwash, people. Tennessee, ranked top 15, had to manually throttle the Vols down a little bit to put them at 15. I think I was right in doing that. You know what I chose to do tonight? I chose to give you one of the first game simulations that I will give you all year. I didn't even tell Jesse about it because I didn't even want a graphic for it. But as you know, we have our own model here. And I can plug at any given time, any game I want to in that model. And that model tells me exactly what the expected outcome would be on that game. In other words, we can develop our own point spreads. So I looked at Wake Forest, just to pull a team out of thin air. I looked at Wake, a ranked team in the AP. And I looked at unranked Tennessee, and I put them on a neutral field. Do you know what our point spread would be if we had Tennessee face Wake Forest? This is post-Sam Hartman injury. So we have updated Wake in a power rating format to account for the quarterback injury. We would favor Tennessee by double digits, by 11.5 points over Wake. That's a team ranked ahead of them. So Tennessee, we like what we see plenty enough. I don't know in what world Wake Forest currently deserves to be ranked above Tennessee, but there is one world. It's the AP world. Let's take a look at Oregon. This is one where I got a ton of pushback. I get it. I was surprised when I saw the model not at least put them inside the top 25. The AP has Oregon at 11, and we got them at 27. I thought it was a typo. It's not. That's what the model spat out. So, yeah, we got a new staff up there. We do account for that, but we don't drop you off a cliff for that. They're replacing starters at quarterback, lead running back, top receiver, replacing a star defensive end. There are holes. Yes, there are. Now, it looks like they plummeted, doesn't it? It looks like wherever we ended Oregon postseason last year versus where we're starting them, it looks like they fell off a cliff. They really didn't. It's an illusion. 27 is not that far from 11. In our model, in fact, I ran the number. Our number 11 team is Wisconsin. Oregon's number 27. So the spot where Oregon is in the AP, we've got Wisconsin. The gap between number 11 and number 27 for us is 4.5 points. So there is a clear top tier. It's called Alabama. Then there's another tier where you got Ohio State, Georgia. Then there's this kind of third tier. Clemson's in there. Michigan's in there. Once you get to about the fourth tier, there are like 15 teams in the fourth tier. It's very, very bunched together. So you could go from 11 to 19 to 26, and it's very close. You're talking about merely changing the venue that the games are played in would change who's favored in the game. And that's 11 versus 27. So I guess what I tell you is there's too much unknown for Oregon to be thrust in the top 15 for us at the time being, or for the time being. But what we won't do is we will not just be dropping them for the sake of dropping them if they lose to Georgia in week 1. Auburn, interesting case study here too. I believe we figured out through deduction that Auburn in the AP would be ranked 36th because they were among the teams receiving votes, but they were way down there. We've got them actually power rated 23. Their over-under win total is 6. Now, I just explained to you a second ago, it makes all the sense in the world if you understand how power ratings work. But to me, Auburn is a classic victim of expectation team. Although it's not supposed to be this way, a lot of times in the AP, people think about what their record for you is probably going to be, and then they vote you accordingly. The AP is only supposed to work like that after the games have been played. But people look at how tough their schedule is. Like, you should never be talking about schedule when you're ranking teams, ever. But yet I heard a lot of people, how do you not rank Auburn? Well, they got a tough schedule. Who cares what their schedule is? You're trying to rank how good they are. Or at least I thought that's what this exercise was all about. They may not win 6 games, they told me. When I rated them 23 the other day and I told you they were top 23, they said, Auburn may not win 6 games. I said, I know. In fact, they may not even win 5 of them. Doesn't mean we're wrong. How could that be, Josh? How could you have them top 25 and they not even make a bowl game? Well, they play 7 teams power rated ahead of them. So our model expects them, if they are the 23rd best team and everything else in this power rating is right, They expect Auburn to go 5-7. And only in a power rating world would that make sense. Auburn, it's not, they don't have a bunch of players that you look at and say, there's that superstar, there's that superstar. They're just, the aggregate of talent there is good enough where, I'll tell you what they could do. They could Iowa their way to winning 6 or 7 games. That's what they could do. You watch Iowa football last year. How'd they win games? In the most boring manner possible. That's how. It's fun when they win them, though. But they sit there long enough for someone to hand them a football game. They don't lose it, and they wait for you to lose it. And surprisingly, in college football, that's a winning formula a lot of the time. Auburn does not have to leave home for a little while. It would not surprise me if they start 4-0, 5-0, and then a bunch of people will overrate them and overcorrect, and we'll probably just sit here and say, no, they're a top 25 team, no more, no less. And then all of a sudden they'll play at Georgia, at Ole Miss, Arkansas, at Mississippi State, Texas A&M. Think about that stretch. Just back to back to back to back. And, oh, by the way, they go to Alabama at the end of the year. Brigham Young, let's address this. Let's do it together. I was a little disappointed because I've talked about Brigham Young a fair amount over the past few months. I wanted them to be top 25. Unfortunately, they're our 35th power-rated team. And in the AP, they're 25. So we're 10 spots below the AP. So we think Brigham Young's a little overrated to start the year. It's not a big gap, just a few points, but it does look a lot better with a 25 next to your name. I can tell you we've whiffed on Brigham Young before because we do value previous power ratings in terms of recruiting. We look at your talent roster, and a lot of what we have to ingest involves previous recruiting rankings. Now, we unweighted over time because we actually have a sample size of you as a college football player, but Brigham Young's never recruiting in the top 10, top 15. So sometimes we have to correct during the season because the model has figured that Brigham Young is the exception to the rule. We base it on rules, and then we'll course correct with the exceptions to the rule. So here was my glass half full approach. If the model's wrong, it's wrong because of that. And maybe we're down on Brigham Young. Maybe they'll end up beating a couple of these teams. Maybe they got an NFL first-round quarterback there. Maybe, we'll see. Nevertheless, that explains, briefly, why Brigham Young is 10 spots lower in the JP poll. Pitt, a lot of controversy around where we have Pitt. The AP has Pitt 17th. JP poll has Pitt 32nd. How is this? Well, I wanted to know first off how big the gap is. So 17th for us is Oklahoma State. Pitt at 32, Oklahoma State at 17. If we played that game today, what would the model think? On a neutral field, we would favor Oklahoma State by 3.5. So it's not a wide gap. It's a very, very small gap, as I told you it was. West Virginia plays them in week 1. So my point there is we don't have to wait very long to start finding out whether we're right or we're wrong on Pitt, because they play West Virginia and Tennessee the first 2 weeks of the year. Now, here's what's interesting. We don't have West Virginia rated higher than them, but if we see a really close game, even if Pitt wins, if we see a really tight game, and then we see Tennessee beat them in week 2, Pitt's ranked ahead of Tennessee in the AP. We got Tennessee well ahead of Pitt. So that will be an early season JP versus AP game. So that's good news because, hey, if we're wrong, we want to find out as early as possible. Most of the time, the opposite is what's happening. Not all the time, though. Inevitably, we're trying to power rate everyone. We're not going to be right on everyone. So if Tennessee is one of those that we're not right on, or Pitt isn't, we'll find out early on.